It's tool time, so here we go. Hey, I'm glad you caught my channel. Today, I'm going to show how I'm going to temporarily hook up this Heatstar Radiant heater. This heater is meant to hang from the ceiling. And in my shop here, I want to make sure that I get the positioning just right. So I'm going to hook up a temporary system so that I can kind of move it around and reposition it and test the heat output at different heights, different angles, and different positions in my shop. I may need to have a couple of these heaters. So before I did all the serious plumbing, when I say plumbing, I mean running the gas lines for the propane and also the electrical lines for the power and the thermostat, I want to make sure I have it in just the right spot. So I have the kit that I'm going to hook it to, the propane tank. I've got some wire off my shelf. We'll talk about that. I've got a couple things here that I'm going to use to hook it all up. This model of Radiant heater is the 60,000 BTU model. And it's a Heatstar. It's a HS8060 SPLP. Now, if you're wondering if this is the right model heater for your application, you should check out my other video. I'm going to post the link up here right now so that you can click on it. And that's my unboxing video, but it's more than just an unboxing video. It talks about the differences in the models of these heaters. That way you can decide which one is the best for your application. In this video, I'm going to hook this thing up and I'm going to test it so I can move it around my shop in different locations, and then I'll end up finding the right spot to permanently mount this thing in my shop. So let's get to it. In order to get this heater to operate correctly, you need electricity. So your electricity has to come in the form of a 110 volt supply. So what I'm going to do is use this part of an extension cord. I cut this off a different appliance, but I noticed it's about the same size as the wires that come on this transformer. So the wire size is about the same. Temporary usage, that should work. Then this transformer is a 24 volt transformer. It comes with the heater, so I didn't purchase that separately. But what you would normally do is hook your power supply, which is 110 volt household power, and you would hook it to this transformer. And out of the transformer will come 24 volt DC current, and it gets hooked up to the unit itself. So for that, I'll need some wire like this to run from my transformer over to my gas valve control unit. And for that, I've just selected some wire that I had that I use for automotive purposes. What I'm looking for right now is temporary. So I'm going to just use basically some of this SXL crosslink wire that's white for the connection between here and over to here, I guess. Then I'm going to get a green piece, and the green piece has to go to this ground location, which is right over here is the ground, and then it'll run back up to, I forget which terminal, but whatever terminal it tells you is green on this one, on the transformer. So I'm just going to use SXL wire for that, and I think the green I got here is PVC, which is not the best wire in the long run. And the only reason for that is PVC wire, to make this quick, is really for areas that, you know, you get a lot of oil, grease, stuff like that, automotive. SXL wire works better. It has a little bit higher temperature rating. So in the long run, I'll probably use that. I use this wire as a gauge, and you know, I looked at this. You can see the wire I have here in my hand is a little bit bigger than the wire that they've used for the factory. This is 12 gauge. I think what they have here on the control unit is 14. So for right now, I'm going to use 14 gauge. Probably my final installation, I'll use 12 gauge wire. So let me get started. I'm going to make some connections on these, and I'm going to make some wires with some spade terminals on the end so I can connect to the appropriate spade terminal connections on the units, and then we'll see what the next step's going to be. Okay, in order to connect temporarily to my transformer, I put on a couple fork type terminals, and I connected them like that. I'm just going to cover them over with electrical tape so I don't have any exposed wiring. And then in order to connect this this 110 volt plug that I got off of another appliance, I am just going to use wire nuts. So I wired that up and I taped it, connected it like that, and then I'll go out and make the connection to the heater. So the heater kit comes with the hose and the regulator, and like I said, this kit is really meant to run vent-free heaters like that on the picture, but I'm going to use it to run this one temporarily. So it comes with most of everything you need. It comes with the regulators, the hose, it's 12 foot, and the hose, a couple connectors. This is a 90-degree connector so that if it's coming out of your heater and the hose needs to go 90 degrees, then you can use that fitting. Otherwise, you can use the straight one, which is what I'm going to use because my heater is going to be angled at 45 degrees, or roughly when I'm testing it. Then this component here, this fitting, will just go in like this to the hose, and that's the final connection. Now, the only thing that was not included to make all this work was this bushing right here. So I had this one in my plumbing box, and I believe this is just a bushing that goes from 1/2 inch NPT to 3/8 inch NPT. So on the heater side, when you do the final installation, the permanent installation, it'll end up with a fitting like this. And this part right here will go into the heater valve, the gas valve on the heater, and this part right over here will end up going into your gas line that will actually be your permanent gas line. So in order to make this work, I've just used a bushing that accounts for this piece, and then it'll go into here like this, like so. And that should connect it to my heater. So that should only take me a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to be ready to test this thing. Let me fix this. Now I have all my connections hooked up. You can see I've got the ground wire over here. I used blue because I had a lot of blue. And got the signal power wire coming in there. That would normally be for the thermostat. Since I'm not running a thermostat, I'm just running it directly. I made my fitting right there. There's the bushing, brass fitting, the hose. Run the hose down. Got the slack in the wire so I can move it around. Got my propane tank sitting here on the side of my forklift, strapped on, and I just used the connection that came in the kit. There's the regulator and the fitting. So then I went back here and I checked all of these fittings to make sure with some soapy water, make sure we didn't have any leakage. Just soapy water there, checking to make sure I didn't have any leakage. So I'm going to wait a minute or two, make sure there's no seepage or bubbles in there. And then after that, we're going to try to mount this. I'd like to set it so that it's actually at a bit of an angle. So I'm going to try to mount it like this. And then we're going to try to test fire it and see what happens. Actually, you know what? I might just try to test fire it once the way it is. After I get it lit and make sure it's working properly, then I think I'll angle it and mount it the right way. So at this point, let me get some power plugged into it. Like I said, I've ran the wires back here. There's all the wiring for it. And the plug is right here. I'm going to plug into to get my power. And after that, we're going to follow the procedure to try to get the thing lit for the first time. Well, I guess since this one's electronic, all I have to do is turn the knob here from off over to on. And then I'm not using a thermostat, so when I plug it in, it should call for action right away. Got the gas on, it's all charged. I checked for leaks. So I'm going to cross my fingers, we're going to plug it in and be on standby. Here we go. Waiting to see if anything happens here. Everything looks okay, but I don't hear anything. Alright, well, hell. It didn't fire up for me, as you can see. So I came back to see what was going on here, and I started testing my transformer. Turns out, my dumb ass wired it up wrong. So, anyhow, I checked, first thing I did is check over here to make sure I had 110 voltage, which I do. Then, on a normal furnace, you'll see this transformer has the letters on there where you can make your connections like this, C, whatever. You can see the little letters next to the transformers. C, R, W, G, etc. Anyhow, usually from your thermostat to your furnace, when it calls for heat, will be a white wire, like this. And this one is going to be your call for heat, which says W. So I just assumed that, hey, I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to put it to the thermostat setting on the motherboard and connect it that way. So I have my common wire set up correctly, which was the blue one over here. And I had the call signal wire to white. Well, that was my problem, I think, because notice if I test this, you can see there's no voltage there. Since I'm not using a thermostat, the white wire is not going to be applicable. And what I really have to do is just bypass that. And normally the red wire, which is the one down here on the corner, it's the one that usually supplies the power for the thermostat. And then of course the thermostat will switch over to call for heat or whatever else it needs to do. So what I need to do is just wire it straight to the red terminal like this, and you see when I do that, it gets 28 volts through that circuit. So that's what I need to do. I just need to switch the one wire. I had it on white. I screwed that up. I need to put it on red, and at that point everything should function properly. So I'm going to hook those wires back up, put it on, we'll try it again. Alright, so I have my wires switched up. Of course, I've got the blue on the common, and now I switched the white one to the red power wire off of the W. And check this, so the white wire normally would come from the thermostat, got it straight to there. And I have the blue one going over here to the common ground. So we're going to give this another shot. And I should be ready to go. Propane tank's open. Got my plug. As soon as I plug this in, it should be going. So let's check it out. Here we go. Hear the clicking. I hear the sparker. It's not starting right up, so I don't know if we got air in the line or what. Not quite sure what's going on. Oh, I heard it do something. Now it clicked off. All right, I think we might have a little air in the line. Let's just unplug it, try it one more time. I'm just going to give it a few minutes to dissipate in case there was any residual propane that got in the air. All right, here we go. Try number 2. Here we go. Plugging it in. Oh, heard it click. Something changed. Oh yeah, I just saw the flame go across. It is lit. Let me show you what I'm seeing. I saw the flame go across the top, and now I can hear it burning. It's not red hot yet, but there is a flame going. Oh, it's starting to glow a little bit. You can see. Oh yeah, she's working. Okay. Well, good deal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this off because I know it's going to light. I'm going to position it a little bit better and see how much heat it puts out. I've come up with the system. It's a little hokey, but it ought to work. Got some chains up to the top of my forklift. And I've got a plate, and I've got some wire holding the bottom down. So I've got the thing sort of mounted, and I've got it on approximately a 45-degree angle, much like it'll be on the ceiling when I'm all said and done. So I'm going to fire it up. Then I'm going to use my little lift, and I'm going to raise this thing up and see what kind of heat it puts out. Let's do it. There goes the flame. You can see the pilot is lit. It lights the little pilot light right over here first with the electronic sparker. And then it lights the whole burner. I feel a little heat coming out. Woohoo! Let me raise it up. So I've got it up here about 8 foot high right now, and I'm standing, I don't know, 3-4 feet out from it, and I can feel some heat already starting to radiate. The burners aren't even completely red yet, but I can feel the temperature coming up. Starting to feel pretty good. Hold on, we'll see how well this goes. I see it starting to turn pink, and it's been right now about 1 minute. So it's been about 3 or 4 minutes now. It's fully glowing, and I'm standing about 6 feet out from it. This thing right now is 8 foot in the air. Sorry about my shop. It's messy as usual. But anyhow, the ceilings in here aren't finished. This thing's a work in progress. And you can see it's not insulated. And I'm 6 feet out. It's 8 feet in the air. And it's putting out really good heat that I can feel on my skin. Now, the things aren't quite warm yet. Of course, it's only been 4 or 5 minutes here. I notice if I'm right under it, so 90 degrees basically from the direction of the burners, it's really intense, pretty hot. And really, I probably wouldn't want to work under it like this all the time because it's almost too intense to point it. So I kind of have to space it where I want it. I think when I'm out of the direct shot of it here. So this line here on the floor, this concrete seam here is about 6.5 foot from where the wheels on the forklift are. Now if I'm inside of that line, meaning that if I'm 5 foot closer, if I'm 5 foot from it. Now it's been going for about 20 minutes, and I kind of set up my little roller chair and a tape measure to get an idea. And right here, at this concrete line. It's about 6 foot from the distance of where that heater is mounted. And like I said, the heater is 8 foot high right now, which means that there's 4 foot, actually more than that, because these are 13 foot high ceilings. So yeah, there is about 4 foot above it because the heater is about 1 foot tall. But I noticed when I'm working on a car a lot of times, or a truck most of the time, or whatever, I've got my lift there, and my roller chair is going to be about in that spot, because a lot of times what I'll do is raise the vehicle up, and I do a lot of tires, brakes, front end suspension, bearings, things like that. And more often than not, I am in a situation like this where I'm working on my roller seat. So I'll be about from this distance to the roller seat, and that's the primary area that I'm working at. And that distance is right around 7 feet to the front. 6 to 7 feet right in there. So, you know, the vehicle would be on there, and obviously right in here is where I'm taking the tires off. That's about where I'm working most of the time. So I sat in this chair for, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 minutes to feel it, and I could feel the heat building on my back. So as I could feel the heat building on my back, I realized that might be pretty close to the right spot. I just sort of have to play with it. It might need to be a foot back from where it's at, because I can tell you right now, if I'm any closer than about where that crack is, say the 6 foot mark underneath of it, it's almost too hot to continually stand under there. Probably within about 10 minutes I'd be overheated. So I'm going to need to move out from there some. So I think 7-8 feet out is going to be about the right range in my first take on this thing. I took my sweatshirt off. You can see it laying over there on the old heater, because I wanted to feel it on my skin. Right now it's not super cold out today. Here right now it's in the upper 30s, and this thing, you can tell there's a bit of a draft that comes through here. You can kind of see the spider webs at the corner of that light kind of moving, because there's a draft coming through here. But, you know, I think even right now with it being in the 30s, I'm staying in a t-shirt. I'm not freezing. Now, either way, I can come back through here and all the way to this point, you know, and we're at 11 foot where the heater is at, and I can still feel the heat radiating off of it at 11 foot. So I'm not sure. Not quite sure if I'm going to need it up there or not. That's why I'm going to actually get some vehicles in here and do a couple projects where I can move this thing forward or backwards, roll it forward or backwards on my forklift, and see if that's going to end up being too hot. Because I think if I'm continually running that for 4 hours or something like that, it's going to be kind of hot to sit under. And I could even see this spot right here, 7 foot, maybe getting too warm. So all in all, my plan, I knew this from the start, that this 60,000 BTU, I could always move it down to 50,000 with the adjustable nozzle, but I don't think I'll end up doing that. I do think that I'm going to end up needing another one. I'll put it probably over this way, you know, to space it out. Width-wise, I noticed once I get to, I don't know, probably about 6 foot out from the center of what I'll call the primary focus, which is actually pretty close to this center crack, I start to lose the radiant heat feeling. So I think probably 2 of these are going to be about right for my space. If you want to see how all this works out and the final mounting of these things, watch my next video. And make sure you ring that bell so that you're notified of when that videos pop up, when my new videos pop up. I did think of one other option with this thing, and I think it's pretty valid. I think when I do mount it, I would like to mount it in a sense that on one side of the heater, probably the front side, I'll have maybe an adjustable cable. That way I can pivot the angle of it. I think that's going to be advantageous, because if this is too intense, pointed directly at me, one day from another, I could just point it down and the intensity would go straight down instead of pointed straight at me. Or vice versa. If I want it to reach out a little bit farther, then I can maybe point it up a little bit with the cable. So I think maybe on the back side, I'm thinking about having a fixed mount position, but on the front side, I might have a cable that I can just tug on to change the pointed direction of the heater. I will note one thing also, as I come back behind it, of course it's radiant heat, so as I get back in this direction behind it, I don't get any heat. The heat really starts, you know, at the bottom straight down, and if you go back behind it at all, then you don't get any radiant heat. Now what will happen eventually if I leave this on, hopefully for hours, is the floor area here is going to warm up, because that's the way that radiant heat works. It's going to warm up the objects in the room. The concrete floor would take a long time to warm up, but once it does, it'll start putting heat elsewhere. Another thing I think I'm going to plan on doing, I've watched some other videos where people have done similar things, is I'm going to end up mounting a fan probably above it, because a lot of the heat from these things are going up above it onto the ceiling. So I think what I'll do is put a fan up above it that will circulate and move some of that hot air, maybe in a direction like behind it, to where it doesn't get as much heat that way. Hope this has helped. Stay warm.